Hey everybody, this is Abe Safa, Contact Junkie. I've got Greg Harrelson here on this video call. We're going to discuss today what makes a great campaign.
Yeah,
So
man.
Greg, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. You know, we were having conversations, earlier about some other things when it comes to working our databases and improving our ROI on online leads or just leads that we capture. And the conversation comes up about campaigns and what the heck makes a great campaign, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
within Contact Junkie, one of the things that I've said is like, hey, look, there's a lot of tools out there that allow people to deliver messages, through automation. And I think when you really look at it, I feel like Contact is probably the leader in that, in that particular space. But one of the things that I think is really important is to understand that the content in the campaigns or the campaigns themselves it's a big part of the ROI.
No question.
So, and I get that I've been getting questions, or I've gotten questions where people will Facebook message me and say, hey, you have any suggestions on campaigns? And that's a tough question to answer, right? Because I don't know exactly what they're intending to do. If I knew a little bit more, then I could say, hey, this is exactly what you need to do, and this is what you need to have in your campaign. So without getting into the actual script of the campaign, I can share some things that I believe, and I know you have some ideas also on what makes a good campaign. So I'll say number one, not necessarily, this is an important one, but I think there's one that's going to be the most important that we'll discuss in just a minute.
Right.
This particular one, though, is the content itself being delivered through multiple channels. Okay, so it's not the script of the content. It's the fact that it's got to be delivered in multiple channels. In other words, when we're out there trying to create a campaign to get people to engage with us, we need to make sure that the campaign includes a call. The campaign must include a text. The campaign must include an email. And if there's any other channels that you know of that you may want to do, like you could then take all of your leads and then put a Facebook post just to that custom audience. That would be another channel. So what I believe is that you've got to use multiple channels. Agents that are relying on email drip campaigns alone, hey, I applaud you for taking the initiative and being in action on doing something, because something is significantly better than nothing. But the reality is there's so much noise and competition for attention in the email inbox that it's hard to stand out. So I look at email as being one way to actually communicate. But the email, when we blend in text, now all of a sudden, when we have texting and emailing, now we're getting a better response from our emails, and we're getting a better response from our text. If we only have text, then we'll get a good response. If we only have emails, then we'll get an okay response. But when we have communication going out in a campaign that's going through both channels, we get better responses in each one of those individual channels collectively. Now what happens if you add in a phone call? You add in some phone calls and some voicemail messages. Now again, that may not, as a standalone, give you a great return. You may not get great engagement, but when you add that to the other channels, now it raises your rate of engagement tremendously, within that campaign. Any thoughts on that, Abe?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the combination, like one in itself is somewhat powerful, but when you combine them all together, there's an exponential increase in power, I guess, for the response. So yes. And also going back to that, making it where they actually flow together, right? So if you left a certain voicemail, the text message shouldn't be like completely off target. It should be kind of go with the same message through all, and keep it consistent through all channels. So it looks like it was really personalized for that person, and it's not like all over the place with different messages.
Absolutely. So an example of that, and that's critical. It's got the days of one size fits all. It's not only over; it's been over. But I just don't think agents have admitted that yet. They're still blanketing with very generic type of communication. And that's why I don't like, autoresponders as much. I mean, I do believe in autoresponders, but one of the weaknesses with autoresponders is they just sound so one size fits all, and the consumer's starting to pick up on that. Okay, so what I think makes a good campaign is, let's just say that the first contact is a phone call and there's a voicemail dropped, okay? And then a text may go out, let's say 5 minutes later. Well, a great first text, knowing that a voicemail was left, then a great first text may be, I just left you a voicemail, and then text what you want to text. But that referencing, I just left a voicemail, knowing that you did just leave a voicemail, brings that to those two, it merges those two channels into one conversation. And so the consumer's starting to feel like, oh, this is a real human being. And then an email goes out 30 minutes later. Hey, I just, I don't know if you got your, the voicemail that I left. I also sent you a quick little text. I'm sure you're probably busy, but blank. Now I just blended the email. I just merged the email into the conversation. So they're thinking, gosh, this person's really like trying to reach me, and they're really, seeing this as kind of personalized. It's kind of one-on-one, giving them one-on-one attention. It just doesn't sound like something you could blast to thousands of people. And exactly. I think that's one of the things that makes it very, very effective.
Yeah, and it seems real personal. It doesn't look like an email blast or a text blast or even a voice blast.
Yeah. And a lot of this came up, Abe. I think we learned a lot of this when we were doing some testing on other systems that had, campaigns, and we're like, the returns are okay. And then we started playing with our own content and realizing, holy crap, there is a way to build campaigns and to have these dialogues where we can really move ROI. And I think that's what we've done. I think there's another one out there that you and I, go ahead.
So that was content, right? And then that was consistency.
Yes. Yeah. So we got, the first one was multi-channel, delivering the message through multiple channels.
Okay.
Then the next one is, make it sound as if, make sure that every attempt of communication blends with and flows with the other channel. So if you leave a voicemail, then reference in the text that you left the voicemail, at least the first time, because then that connects the dots. So I don't know exactly how you would label that, but I just know that that's extremely important to an effective campaign.
What are your thoughts on like quantity of text messages relative to voicemail, relative to email?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say, I don't know how to say if we're going to say it in a percentage, but let's just say that I had a campaign and there were 10 total attempts.
Okay.
Because that would be common for me. Then I could see there might be 2 voicemails, there might be 4 texts, and there might be, what's that leave us?
4
emails, 4 emails.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And I think that would be my general answer. Now, it just kind of depends on, the lead source too. The lead source may dictate that. Mm-hmm. And I might go a little bit more heavier on text at times. I might go a little bit more heavier on email at times. I don't tend to go more than probably 20% of, when it comes to voicemails.
Yeah. So when I do my campaigns, it's typically a 3-to-1 ratio for me, okay, which is very similar to what you're saying. So I would send like out of 10, I'd probably have 2 voicemails, 2 emails, and 6 text messages. Mm-hmm. Got it. Somewhere in that range. And then that seems to be the right balance. And again, but it does depend on what kind of lead source it is. But if we were going to generalize and kind of give an estimate across the board, it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah. And I know you know the numbers better than I do. But let's just take a online buyer lead. Mm-hmm. Okay. Whether it's Zillow or the Real Geeks websites or wherever we may get some buyer leads. Do you know, Abe, roughly how many attempts has to be made before we get actual engagement from the leads?
Yeah, the average is somewhere around 7.
7, okay, good.
Somewhere in that ballpark. Again, obviously there's different lead sources, but it's somewhere around 7.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that would be considered an average. Is that what you're saying?
yes. And I'm not
Okay.
counting the manual attempts, right?
Okay.
So
Okay. Good. Good. So 7 after you've already made a few manual attempts.
that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
So, if that's the average, then we could probably argue that a campaign needs to probably have at least 12 different communication sequences within that campaign, right? If the average is 7, so
Mhm.
some are taking more than 7, some are taking less than 7. So a good campaign, knowing that it's going to take that many, you need to make sure that your campaign has more than that in order to, be able to perform and deliver a good ROI for you. So I think that's another thing that we should factor in.
I agree. I agree. I've seen some people use like really short campaigns. Like I've got campaigns that are as short as 3 messages, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm reaching out to people in my database and it's just checking in once a quarter, see how they're doing. It's just one text, one voicemail, one email, and that's perfectly fine. But if we're talking about new leads, yeah, the campaign needs to be a minimum of 8 sequences, 8 messages, and somewhere. But ideally, you want to be 10 to 12, somewhere in that ballpark, and
Yeah.
that should do it.
Yeah. And that would be a blend through all the channels. That'd be total number
That's
of
correct.
sequences,
Yes.
no matter what your blend is. The other one, and I know we didn't want to be too long on this for our first Facebook Live, with Contact Junkie.
Right.
But the other thing I think that we got to tell everybody is this: is another thing that makes a good campaign is the timing.
Yeah.
And when I say the timing, I want to put a lot of focus on the timing of putting the lead into the campaign. So like if you get a lead, let's just say you get a buyer lead and you call them. You don't get them on the phone, you leave a message, but you call them again, and then you call them again, all manually. And 2 days go by, or 3 days go by, and you haven't got this person on the phone. And you get a little frustrated, and then finally you say, okay, well, I'm just going to put them in Contact Junkie. Versus if you would have actually made your 1 or 2 attempts, like double dialed them as soon as you got the lead, and then when you didn't get that person on the phone, you would have put them into Contact Junkie at that moment. Okay, that moment. The difference in your ROI, in your engagement, percent of engagement increase is going to be dramatic when you put them in right there in the beginning. Because when you put them in, you got to remember, you just captured them. They just did something, therefore you captured them. Now that you captured them, you need to get into action and do these multiple attempts within a very short period of time, not wait, and then put them in. Because while you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and then put them in, then somebody else who's more actively pursuing them has already got them. And that, maybe that doesn't fit into how to design a campaign, but when it comes to effectiveness of campaigns, I think it's got to be noted that when you put leads into the campaign matters.
Absolutely. Everything you've talked about is important, but I think timing it might be, if I was going to pick one being the most important, I really think timing is. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can assure you that most of the responses that we're going to get are typically on the first day. So you're going to get the most number of responses on the first day. Then the second day is going to be the second most number of responses. By the time you get to the third day, it's a whole lot less. You go past the third day, it's over.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, religiously, that lead goes in automatically that first day. As soon as I get it, make the call. As soon as I don't reach them, instantly it goes into Contact Junkie at that point. There's no delay. There's no waiting until tomorrow, the day after. It's too late by then. So
yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm thinking about my own agents right now, and I'm thinking about Lori, who puts them in immediately, and her engagement is, she gets 80% or more, response rate, and it's all coming probably within that first 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then I've got other agents that are trying to manually fit it in their schedule to call them a few times. And they're very inconsistent about it. And they, on average, probably put the leads in 2.5 to 3 days after they captured them. And their response or engagement is extremely low. It's better than doing nothing, but it pales in comparison to what Lori's doing. And when she puts them in immediately, it's just not even the same game.
Yeah, and that's why if you look at the campaigns that we've created, you'll see that they're weighted heavily on the first day. So on the first day is typically, if there's 10 messages, you're going to see maybe 5 on the first day, and then 2 on day 2, and then 2 on day 3, because we know the importance of that first day, the immediate attention that they need to get on the response is all on the first day.
Well, cool.
All right, perfect. That's some great stuff, Greg. Any final points you want to point out?
No, I think that's it. I think that, again, I'll just reiterate, multi-channel approach, the timing of putting in the leads, and then make sure that the blend between the multiple channels, the emails, the texts, etc., make sure that you're connecting the dots. It's just not one off. It's like, I send this message, I send this text, and I send this. You've got to reference them, intertwine them, so the person's experience of this is like it's a real communication, a real conversation. That's going to really change your ROI. Now, the good thing is, for those of you that are using Contact Junkie, we share our campaigns with all the users. So you can bet that we've really put a lot of time in designing our campaigns to work effectively for ourselves. So just reach out if you're a Contact user and you need a campaign, you want us to help you with one, we can send you one. And for those that are users, we like to kind of collaborate amongst each other, our own little ecosystem or mastermind group. So if you post on our closed Facebook group any campaigns that you would like to have, maybe you've got some good ideas we haven't thought of, I will personally sit down and work on campaigns, because you may give me an idea I can use in my company, and in fair trade, I'll turn around and do my best to give the best content back to you so you can use it in your company. That's
Great
about
stuff.
it.
All right, perfect. All right, Greg, have a good weekend. You guys all have a great weekend.
All right.